Live on a Thursday night, it's Steve Allen with I've Got a Secret. Happened to catch an old version of it on Facebook a little while ago.
Well, that was
Bess
Debbie
My
Moore was the original host of I Got a Secret.
right, Bess Meyerson was on vacation, so in
And
her place they had someone from the studio audience step in.
oh, really?
Yeah, she was a flight attendant for Pan Am.
Oh, well, they swapped one beauty for another, I'm sure.
That's well, yeah. She was Betsy Palmer,
Betsy Palmer,
Henry Morgan,
who was in Mr. Roberts, the
right?
movie Mr. Roberts, yeah.
Henry Morgan.
Henry Morgan and Bill Cullen, right?
No, Bill Cullen was out too, and Buddy Hackett, who was on Broadway at the time.
Buddy Hackett was on.
Yeah, Buddy Hackett was on, and
oh boy,
and the stars that had The Secret were Betty Davis and Olivia de Havilland.
Oh well, once they mentioned Betty Davis, I'm sure you were at that.
She
TV
did a few of those shows. She did a few of those.
Well, yeah.
So anyhow,
I saw Perry Mason last night. It had Victor Buono.
Okay, he was in like 5 or 6 of them.
Gavin McLeod.
Yes.
Who was Captain Stubing and also Murray Slaughter.
Right.
On
was this the because he's in another episode too. Is this the one with the race car driver?
No, it was the one with the gorilla.
Oh, I have to go back and look at it because I think with the one in the race car driver, he was the killer.
And Robert Colbert, who, unless you're a science fiction fan, Robert Colbert played Doug in the one-season science fiction show The Time Tunnel back in 1966-67.
Right.
He starred with James. Was it James Colbert?
James Colburn?
Robert Colbert and James Darren.
James Darren, okay.
Right. Tony and Doug.
Well, this isn't. This sometimes can be considered a horror show, although we think it's of slightly different quality. This is a different genre. This is the Joe and Joe Weather Show, and welcome aboard tonight on a day where I have to tell you, Mr. Rayo, it was really wonderful outside. I went walking this morning. I didn't go at the crack of dawn, so but I waited a little bit. But it was cloudy. There was a nice northeast breeze. Yes, it was humid, but I beat the rain. It felt so much better, and we did not get out of the low 70s today because of all the cloud cover and the on and off rain that we had.
We had 82 up here.
Right, an upside down day today because once you got far enough north up into upstate New York and New England, there was a fair amount of sunshine. I don't know how much sun you got, but
we didn't have all that much. But it was, and we didn't have any rain either. I know that there was an area of rain and thunderstorms that literally blew up just south and west of New York City this morning, and then passed over parts of the city and also Long Island. But we saw nothing. We didn't have a drop.
And a big problem for the second day in a row, where the short range weather models, the NAM, the HRRR, did horrendously with the magnitude of this. The GFS, to give it credit, at least had some precip there for today, but the other models have been just awful, and they're doing the same for the weekend where they're basically leaving. I didn't look at the late afternoon NAM, but the earlier runs of the NAM had have no rain for Sunday, and the GFS has this wall of rain coming in late Saturday night, early Sunday morning, which basically wipes out the day. Look, in my view, prove it to me that model is wrong. I mean, right now it seems like it has a little bit of a hot hand.
And the European is bone dry too for Sunday. So, what are you going to do?
Squelching everything south, just suppressing. Right. Correct. Well, yeah. I have it in there for now. I did state that. There is certainly some disagreement, but it's hard for me to fight with this upper trough the way it is to our west, and this south-southwest flow, and the stalled frontal boundary. I'm just not sure what's going on. The short-range models, I have no idea why they're horrible. The Europeans' argument is that the height of the north just kind of squelches everything. I'm not so sure about that. This
I'm
is
not
not
interested in
usually
it.
a time of year where things get suppressed to the south.
And Sal Blandino, meanwhile, is shaking his head.
Oh, he's in the rubber room right now, just bouncing off walls. Mikey B asks a interesting question on the board because it is August 13th. So he's asking whether we're done with the 90s. And statistically, at least on Long Island, after August 5th, after about the middle part of August, 90 degrees, certainly in Suffolk County, is not a very easy thing to achieve. And you might still get it into Nassau County, and of course, you go into New York City and New Jersey, it's a whole different story. But we are starting to get to the time of year where these 90-degree days should thin out if the patterns are correct. But if we get into some kind of big ridge in the east or a heat wave pattern, then all bets are off. But for now, there's certainly no 90-degree weather in our future anytime soon.
Well, yesterday Scott Briller on one of the Briller Jeopardy questions mentioned or asked how many times Philadelphia has hit 90 degrees so far this season, and the answer was 31. Now, Central Park has only hit it 18 times,
Right.
and Philly has been up 31 times already. And in case you're wondering, Joe, because the all-time record for New York for 90-degree days is 39. That was set back in 2 years, 1991 and 1993. 39 90-degree days. That is the highest or the most 90-degree days we've seen in Central Park. Do you want to take a guess how many times for the all-time record Philadelphia has seen 90 in a single
I'm going to
season?
say probably uh, somewhere in the 50s.
Correct.
So I'll say 56.
You're just one short. I would have given you a hint. It's one of your favorite
Oh, it would have been double nickels. It was
double
55.
nickels.
All right. Well,
55, and that was in 2010. 10 years ago, they hit 90 degrees 55 times in that particular summer.
that's just crazy. I don't approve of such things.
Neither do I.
And Mikey B is correct. Would that we could keep these northeast breezes going on forever. You certainly would not have. You won't get an argument from me if we wind up staying with onshore flow and northeast winds. As long as the high can push down far enough south, it makes it reasonable. Let's bring up the U.S. Watches and warnings map tonight because uh, a couple of changes that I think are welcomed to the folks. Well, actually, no, I take it back. They're not welcome. It's the flash flood watches in the east are continuing at least through this evening from northern New Jersey, from Route 78 south, southeastern, and a small portion of south central Pennsylvania, Delaware. Almost all of Maryland, almost all of Virginia. It's just been a busy day, particularly in the Washington-Baltimore corridor. It started. I was watching CNBC this morning, and they had a live shot with one of the reporters coming out of Washington, and it was pouring. I mean, it was you could the rain the sound of the rain coming down while this reporter while she was doing her live shot was overwhelming. You almost couldn't hear her voice. It was coming down so hard. So those flash flood watches continue, as well as some flash flood watches, and those little red dots there are some flash flood warnings that are working this evening. Southern Illinois, southernmost, southwesternmost Indiana, southeastern Missouri. Heat advisory in Texas. Why they have to advise people about heat in Texas in the summertime is beyond me. Also, we have a whole slew of red flag warnings from Arizona, Southern California, Nevada, up the coast through California, and then on up the coast of Oregon into Washington State. Excessive heat warnings up in Washington. So with this big ridge in the western part of the United States, Joe, that's the heat wave stuff that's going on. And everywhere else is just enjoying sort of a typical August dog day afternoon and evening.
And I actually think, Joe, that early next week, don't mean to jump ahead so rapidly, but I
That's okay.
do,
You do that.
I do think that next Tuesday and Wednesday might be two of the more delightful days we've seen, and otherwise
So,
atrociously
so we're
depressing
gonna
summer.
we're gonna buy those we're gonna buy those nice dew points that the GFS is advertising.
I like them, and I'll now we're getting within 7-day range. So why not go with it? And it's going to have to break down eventually. You know that we're eventually going to have to get some comfortable weather in here, and so hopefully Tuesday and Wednesday will be the days. But till then, we still have a few fiery hoops to jump through, I think.
Well, the amplitude of that trough to the west, going all the way down to the Gulf states, really helps because that drags that makes air masses coming down from Canada move further south before they swing east. So that's a big plus for us with regards to getting some real dew point relief. In the meantime, of course. With the moisture that's along the eastern seaboard, we've got the stalled frontal boundary, a ton of clouds. Now, again, it was an upside down day. If you were north and west of the cloud line, for example, if you were in much of northern Pennsylvania today, you had wide open sunshine and points north in upstate New York and New England, temperatures once again in the 80s. But you go in the cloud bands, and those bands going down into Maryland, Delaware, Virginia, temperatures in a lot of spots had a tough time getting above the 80-degree mark. And of course, we had some heavy rains. The other thing I want to point out is something that the Hurricane Center brought up in their latest outlook this afternoon. Uh, I have to say that well, things have changed a lot since when we were coming of age 30 plus years ago. You would never see a tropical weather outlook with a mention of a system moving off the North Carolina coast as a potential for tropical storm development. Not that they didn't happen, and they did. They would sometimes you get these lows that move off and move out into the open waters of the Atlantic this time of year, and the ocean water temperatures generally south of 40 degrees north are warm enough to support a tropical storm. But these days, now you do occasionally get the little X that they have on the outlook. I'll show that later. Talking about this first wave that we're seeing here, this is low pressure, low wave that's developing on this stationary front that's going to be moving out to the east and eventually probably going a little more southeast. It's not an issue here, and it won't ever be. But it does. We mentioned it yesterday, and I'll mention it again today. That it does have the potential for tropical storm development over the weekend out in the open waters of the Atlantic. All it would do is get a name out of the way, and of course we have Tropical Storm Josephine, which we will also get to in just a little bit. But I think we're going to see some tomorrow. I'm hoping that the frontal boundary shifts enough and we start to get that high to build down from the north, Joe, that the dry air that's up in eastern Canada starts to sink southward, at least enough that we won't have any showers to deal with.
I frankly, I agree with you. I think tomorrow will be a dry day. I'm not quite sure how much sunshine we're going to see. Could be a day of more clouds and sun or varying amounts of cloud and sunshine. But I don't think that we're going to see any precipitation. As far as the dew points tomorrow, well, I'm thinking more like low to mid 60s, a few notches below what we've been accustomed to over the last couple of days, and even a bit more of a lowering of the dew point temperatures on Saturday. It looks like right now, Joe, of the 2 weekend days, Saturday is, I think, most definitely the better of the two, in that it looks like it'll be a sunnier day. I don't know about your thoughts, but in the Hudson Valley, I think we'll have a rough time getting above 80 on Saturday.
I agree. There's no reason for it not to for it to go above 80 if you're going to have a northeast wind with the height of the
Right.
northeast of you. Yeah,
And
it should be a reasonably rather pleasant day for this time of year.
east northeast winds, maybe 15 miles per hour, a little gustier from time to time. You get that, the temperature in the 70s and a few intervals of sunshine. I'll take it.
Hmm.
Considering what we've been through, I'll take that.
Now, all of this cloud cover, folks, that you're seeing here, the big question uh, for me, Joe's far enough north. I'm in a slightly dicier place on Long Island, and sometimes the dry air comes down from the northeast and clears it out. The question is, all of this mess that you see back through here. I mean, this is all due to this stalled out frontal boundary, and of course, you've got this upper trough that's going to be dropping down from the Great Lakes into the Gulf states. This is all this moisture's got to go someplace, and I think it rides up northeastward and gets in here on Sunday. So the Saturday question is, how far south do the clouds? How far south does the clearing line get? So I'm thinking it probably makes it to about where I am on Long Island. Maybe cuts across central New Jersey and into central Pennsylvania. That would be the maximum point that you'd see the dry line go south, and then it'll just back around at some point later Saturday and Saturday night and start moving back northeastward as the next wave goes by. Meanwhile, Joe, look at the west. I'm gonna draw. I mean, it's just absolutely cloud free from start to finish. And I think these clouds that you're seeing here, these high clouds, there was a tropical storm in the East Pacific. Actually, just briefly became a minimal hurricane, Elidia, I think it was, and it went from being a hurricane to being a remnant low in less than 18 hours. Just an incredible weakening that took place so fast. Some of the leftover high level moisture is streaming into California and into parts of the Southwest. But that's it. Another Pacific storm that can't seem to get going much beyond minimal hurricane strength. As the Pacific hurricane season is here, we are middle of August, and they're going to get a couple of more names out of the way. But this has been a lack of a season there.
Very suppressed season for the Eastern Pacific. I mean, it's amazing. It's at this time of the year, you'd expect to be already on the seventh or eighth storm, if not more. And meanwhile, it's the Atlantic that has been dominating. Nature uses tropical cyclones in the summertime to release excess heat, and it looks like this year the release is not so much in the Pacific but the Atlantic.
Correct. A lot of heat to be redistributed. The radar tonight. Another pounding today, Joe. South Jersey, southeast parts of southeastern PA, South Jersey. Again, the Washington D.C. Baltimore corridor got into some really heavy rains and some heavy thunderstorms. I saw a lot of flash flood warnings earlier today in that entire area of South Jersey on southward. The storms are a little more scattered over Virginia. Johnny Quest now something like 300 or 400% of normal with some of the thunderstorms he's had up in northwestern Virginia, up in the mountains there. And we've got some storms across North Carolina, eastern South Carolina, some scattered storms in Alabama, Georgia, southern Louisiana, and along the west coast of Florida, seeing some showers and storms. Not much going on in the northern plains. There's a few storms up in northwest Minnesota. I think there's a severe weather risk going on up there. And we're seeing some scattered showers and storms in New Mexico and Arizona. And here's some seeing in Southern California, that remnant tropical moisture, I think, is responsible for some of the rain that you're seeing off the California coast here that's moving northward. Usually it's bone dry in the summertime, and you don't see summer showers in Southern California too often, Southern, Central, or even Northern California too often.
That's true. The nearest showers at this time of the year usually are in the state next door, Arizona, and also New Mexico, the monsoon season, which gets rubbed up during July into part of August. And you can see on the radar that they do have some shower activity over New Mexico and also over Arizona. But again, as you just pointed out, Joe, that area of shower activity that's located just off of the south central California coast, which really doesn't happen too often at this time of the year.
Yeah, I'm bringing up the Pacific loop here so we could kind of see what happened. I think the remnant low of the tropical system is this little bitty right over there, and you're getting moisture offshooting from that, moving on northward into California, and that's the reason why they're getting into some rain. That happens from time to time with these dying tropical storms. Meantime, you can see that the Pacific intertropical convergence zone here is pretty busy, and there are a couple of developing waves that look like they'll probably turn into tropical storms going forward. So the Hurricane Center is monitoring those, but this probably maybe explains why things have somewhat quieted down, although we do have a tropical storm of our own on the Atlantic side. So, like I said, we'll go to Josephine in just a bit. The Surface map tonight at 21Z, 5 o'clock Eastern Time. There's your frontal boundary south of Long Island across central New Jersey. So the busy zone was just along and just and south of that. The dew points in southern Pennsylvania, Maryland, Delaware, Virginia, all of North Carolina and onward, all in the very, very tropical mid 70s. And meanwhile, Joe, I'm seeing these 50s dew points again across the Great Lakes. And there's your high that's coming down out of Canada that's going to be building into the Northeast. So keep your fingers crossed. Push that frontal boundary down. We can get some dry weather in here.
Well, the sheer weight, I think, of the cooler and drier airs eventually going to uh, turn the tide, so to speak, because we certainly don't have very much in terms of a fast flow to usher in or to sweep that dry and cooler air in. But it's going to get here eventually, and eventually, after we get that little wave that passes by to our south over the weekend, once that gets out of the way, that's when that'll really open the door, I think, for a nice. I mean, I'm not talking about one of those fresh, clean, clear air masses from central or northern Canada, but just enough of a push of drier air and the winds, as you pointed out, Joe, basically out of a northeast direction. So it's going to feel good. I'm already looking forward to it. It's still about 5 days away. The really nice air,
Yeah.
but just the thought of knowing that it's there and hopefully the models won't take it away from us.
No,
Like
we hope
sometimes
not.
they do.
Well, we've got the 7 day rainfall is not almost non-existent in the western part of the U.S., but in the east, it's the Mid-Atlantic states from Maryland southward into the southeast, getting a rather ample amount of rainfall. Some places on the order of 3 to 5 inches or more in western Virginia, western North Carolina, and also along the North Carolina immediate coast and extending out into the coastal waters there. We're on the edge of 3/4 of an inch to an inch here, and the amounts thin out a little bit as you go up into New England, but generally ½ inch to an inch rainfall amounts may be coming from that system for Sunday, because that to me looks like the only one in play during these next 7 days. So we'll get the fresh look. I have not seen the new GFS. I sometimes look at it ahead of time, and sometimes I I wait till the show so that we're both surprised. Now, this again, Joe, this model has of all the models, this one I think has handled the last couple of days the best. So this wave goes out. You see that low. Meanwhile, there's some rough weather for later tomorrow across Minnesota. There's, I believe I think they had an enhanced risk of severe weather. I will double check on SBC in a second. I don't want to speak out of turn here, but this wave moving out is what we mentioned earlier, that may or may not become a tropical system down the road out in the open waters. But your big high, that's pretty strong. You got pressures up above 1024. Joe, northeast of Caribou, up in New Brunswick. That's not too shabby for this time of year, and it's a nice northeast flow coming in on Saturday with the low to the southeast, just enough of a gradient, as you said, to make for a little bit of a breeze. So again, the big question is, where is the cloud line? And I think it's going to probably run something like this during the that's maybe as far south as it gets before the high starts to pull out slowly, and we get this rain advancing for Saturday night. It actually moves into Pennsylvania, Virginia, Maryland during the day on Saturday, and the GFS has it kind of stalls out a bit, Joe. The high holds on. The high is still there at 1023 up in New Brunswick early Sunday morning, so it kind of keeps the rain at bay until uh, somewhere between 2 a.m. and 8 a.m. And then it comes rolling in. And then the GFS, if you want to believe it, would suggest, Joe, well, Sunday's a day where it may be rain for most of the day if this is right.
I know, I saw that, and you got to begin to scratch your head. But then again, you mentioned, Joe, how the GFS seemingly has been the best of the models. Let's not forget the job that it did last week with Isaias.
Yes.
The speed of the storm far better than any of the other models. So maybe the GFS has suddenly become the model of choice.
It could be. I'm looking at the icon. which might usually mimics the European to an extent, it tries to bring that rain up Saturday night, but then it dries it up during the day Sunday because it doesn't really develop any kind of wave with it. And the GFS has this negatively tilted trough that's swinging up and around. Uh, I'm going to give deference to that. I think you're going to have an area of rain with this that will hold on. And hey, if the worst thing's to worst, if I'm wrong, it'll turn out to be a better day. But definitely Saturday is going to be the better of the two, regardless, because you're still going to be fighting clouds on Sunday.
Right.
And let's go back to the GFS, because once that rain moves out, uh, in comes a nice dry high. That's a nice little high that drops down into Iowa and Missouri, and then kind of branches east-west, 564 thickness. That might be enough. We'll look at the dew point map in a second. And there's rain in the southeast because there's a stalled frontal boundary somewhere. And the GFS maybe tries to bring that up next weekend. But we'll deal with that. That's a problem for a later time. I'll bring up the dew points. Let's see if it's still doing the same thing with the dew points. Oh, look at that. Look at that, Joe. A 50 dew point in northern New Jersey early Wednesday morning. Can you
Right.
can you complain about that?
No, I can't.
Low 60s dew points on Monday.
I'll be complaining if it doesn't happen, though.
Not only do we have dew points in the 50s, but the 60-degree dew point line goes all the way down into western North Carolina. So this dry air has penetrates far enough south so that even in the perpetual summer areas of Virginia and North Carolina will enjoy a little bit of dew point relief. And look, during the day Tuesday, dew points in the low and mid 50s. And even on Wednesday, dew points are still holding on. There's a 48 dew point up the Hudson Valley Wednesday morning. Not too shabby. So this at least implies that GFS's signal from yesterday and the day before that we're going to get some real dew point relief for the first half of next week. Looks like it's going to happen. It looks
Let's
like it's going to happen.
let's hope so. I won't have to take that trip like I was threatening to do yesterday up I-87 to get it
No,
upstate New York. They would
no.
stop me at the border. They would stop me at the Canadian border, though. I can you believe that nobody can go anywhere in this country? I mean, you can't go into Canada. You'll be blocked there because of COVID. You can't go to Mexico. You can't
Right.
even fly out and go to Europe.
I
I
know.
mean, we're all by our lonesome here.
Yeah, and it's tough. It's been really tough. Trying to get around and doing things is, I guess we've been removed from normalcy, and it's getting to a lot of folks, no
Yes,
doubt.
yes.
Well, here we got our deep trough here in the eastern part of the U.S. And there it is, and there's a short wave that's impacting our weather. That's the system for Sunday. We'll watch it lift up to the northeast, and that trough strength. Oh, look at that! No wonder the dew points come down, Joe. The upper low just strengthens. This is a nice wintertime looking upper air. If we had it in the wintertime, it's blocky. It's a cold flow that comes down out of Canada. Our air is actually, if you follow the jet, it's pretty much coming right down out of Canada. So maybe there will be some Canadian pine smelling going on early next week. And that trough, part of it lifts out, but another upper low tries to drop in later next weekend. And I'm moving ahead here. It's funny. Back last week, uh, the models were showing this big east-west, this strong ridge in the east, this big upper high building, uh, mid to late month heat wave, and it's turning out to be exactly the opposite. In fact, on this particular run on the long range, there's another deep trough that drops down into the Great Lakes, a multi cutoff low here. And this is again, I want to just emphasize again, if we keep getting these troughs dropping into the east, and we had the two of them that brought up the two tropical storms, and we still have this kind of pattern going into September, we're going to have to be very careful if something starts to forms out in the tropics and it's in the wrong place at the wrong time. But this is a very, very relatively dynamic looking upper air for the end of August. I'm quite impressed if it turns out like this.
Well, the 6 to 10 day outlook from the Climate Prediction Center is rather impressive. They have a 70% probability of below normal temperatures in, get this now, Arkansas. Arkansas,
Arkansas.
the cool core of air. And if you think about the way that trough is aligned, I guess you could say that the lion's share of the cooler, drier air will indeed flow down through the central part of the nation.
Right.
But you don't see that often. 70% chance of below normal temperatures in Arkansas in mid-August, but that's the 6 to 10 day outlook. That's next week, middle of next week, latter part of next week. You want some relief from the humidity and maybe
So
even
they
the
have a
heat.
rather large area of below normal.
Right, and get this now, we're still on the 6 to 10 day. The New York metropolitan area is still slightly in the above normal category.
Yeah, but you don't know if that's front.
Northern.
One of the problems this time of year with that is if it's front end loaded. Look, you get days like today and tomorrow and Saturday. If you're stuck in clouds and a northeast wind, you're going to be below normal. As you get this the way the frontal boundary sets up. So that's always it's a little easier in the wintertime to kind of paint a broad brush. But what isn't happening is what they had back. Didn't they not have one day last week, I seem to recall, where they basically had the whole country in above normal temperatures in their long range? Because that's not going to happen.
No, I don't think so. Not by the looks of the way things are going to be happening in the coming days ahead. Although they're 3 to 4 week experimental, and that comes out again tomorrow.
They're forever
Last week,
experimenting over there.
last week they had virtually the entire country in above normal all the way out until the beginning of September, September 4th. I'm wondering how that's going to this change in the upper level pattern is going to factor
Well,
in.
if it's anything like this, I mean, we don't obviously in the long range, we don't know that that's going to be the case. But uh, if we have an upper air that looks anything like this, it ain't going to be above normal. It's going to be below normal. Which, you know what, I'd be happy. I would be happy. So let's run through really quick. Tropical storm Josephine at 5 p.m. on the last advisory is still at 45 miles an hour top winds, 14 and a half and 50 and a half. It's about 900 miles or so east of the northern Leeward Islands. Top winds 45, moving west-northwest at 16. And the logic here with this storm remains what it has been the last few days. It has a window of opportunity to strengthen through the day tomorrow, but then once it gets close enough to the northern leewards, it's got that roaring southwest winds in the upper atmosphere that will likely shear this apart. And they weaken it to a depression. And the shear is so strong that I think it may wind up weakening a bit faster than that. And here's a still shot of it from this evening. It's the latest satellite view. So it looks like it's actually the area of convection seems to have expanded a little bit. I'm going to see if I can try to get a loop of this, which is always an issue. So hang on. We'll see if I can.
Folks in Bermuda probably, if this pans out, they'll get a little bit of cloudy and maybe some squally rain activity or shower activity. But
well, they got that other thing that's going to be out in the ocean that if it winds up dropping southeastward, it might also be close enough where they might see some slightly inclement weather from it. I don't think it'll be anything. It'll be close enough to cause them any problems. Let me just bring up a loop of this, and there we go. Here we are. We'll let the loop load. I'll put a few extra frames in here. So it is a tropical storm. I mean, looking at the satellite, it's definitely so much better organized than it was yesterday. And it looks like there's a little convection blowing up around the center there during the last few frames of the visible before it goes infrared. So it's quite possible that this could get up to 55 or even 60 miles an hour before the intensification process levels off. I really don't see much room for anything different to happen here with regards to this tropical system. The only other thing is to come back full screen, Joe. Just so I want to say, because a lot of the hurricane the hurricane, let's call them the cheerleaders, The folks in the audience who are really into weather, and they're looking at all sorts of different things with regards to tropical storms and everything else, and kind of seeing the dryness of the atmosphere in the Atlantic, and that we're getting this dust that keeps coming off from the Sahara, that maybe this will slow down the record pace. I would just point out that while it might be true to some extent, I'm not somebody that forecasts that we're going to have a record year. You'll never hear something like that coming out of my mouth. I let things happen, let the history write itself when it happens. But all I'll say is that the Cape Verde storms are not the only way that we could see tropical storm development, and certainly the way the season is, that you could have systems that develop in the subtropical Atlantic. You could have systems that develop in the Gulf of Mexico, in the Caribbean. That could all very well happen, even if the MDR, the major development region, is not necessarily cooperating because of its own issues. So I wouldn't overread what's going on in the tropical Atlantic as an indicator that the hurricane season is going to slow down. It might, but there are other ways that you're going to see tropical storms develop. And let history, as I said, we'll let history write itself.
Well, we're 11. This was the 11th storm, and we're nine
No,
full
this is the
days
10th.
ahead.
This is the
We're
10th.
9 full days ahead of the J storm in the record-setting
Yes.
year of 2005, Jose.
Right.
So,
and if we need the K storm has to come, I believe, before the 27th or 28th for Katrina.
right.
So yeah, so it's the 13th. You got 15 days to get us another name out of the way.
Right.
And we'll see if the pace goes on. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. I don't get into looking at stuff and saying, oh, this could be record setting or this could be unprecedented. Those are words that I just don't like to use, because 99% of the time you wind up getting burned over it.
And besides that, I don't know Greek.
Yes.
Alpha, beta, gamma.
Yeah. I know if we ever get that far again, maybe that was a once in a lifetime adventure that we got to the Greek alphabet in that particular year. Oh well. So how about we do a little Briller Jeopardy? And
I don't know if Mr. Briller sent me anything.
I got something here somewhere. He's out doing his COVID runs tonight, so we wish him well and hope he stays safe and sound. Let's see. I have it somewhere. I thought he sent me something yesterday. I just love. Oh, here we go. Let's see. Oh no, we did that one. That was the TV guide one. Okay, blah. I'm looking. Ah, no, that's the same one. Okay. All right, got that. Yeah, I just reread his message where he says Briller Jeopardy returns either tomorrow or Sunday. But I'm thinking, Mr. Rayo, that we're gonna take tomorrow off and Saturday.
No, and Saturday.
Yes.
Well, I will not complain.
Good.
It's had a fairly active couple of weeks, and we could use a little bit of an extended weekend, I suppose, if you will. So we'll be back here at 11 o'clock in the morning on Sunday.
Sunday, yeah. Chuck Cardillo says his wife says that he's been below normal for 22 years. Oh, Lord have mercy. Okay. Jason Barry says, I think storms are named too easily compared to back in the day. And back in the day, they wanted them all to go away. So technology allows better monitoring and quicker updates. Look, I think that they do have. There are some times where they've named stuff that you kind of raise your eyebrows, and think, really? Like what was it that the one storm last year that was basically a cluster of thunderstorms, but there was a circulation and the gales extended outward 10 miles. I mean, we've seen severe thunderstorm clusters that have been worse than that. But there are some who think that they do seem to, try to get names out of the way. I don't know. They have a criteria that they follow. I'm going to give. I like to give most of the professionals in our industry the benefit of the doubt and not question what they do. I mean, unless it's really egregious, and I can't think of anything really that's ever happened that I would call egregious to go against it. They do their job. I think they do it very well. So if they say this one is a tropical storm, I mean, there's no doubt when you look on the satellite that that's a tropical storm. And I don't think there's any. I think all of the systems this year were fairly legit. So the numbers are. I think the numbers that we're at this year are real. I don't think any of those storms were manufactured. But Joe, you and I both know there have been a number of instances many years ago where we've had these systems where you're looking at them and you're thinking, why haven't they said anything? And why haven't they said anything? And there have been instances where stuff has become tropical storms, that they've become tropical storms that have impacted areas that they kind of were behind the eight ball from the get-go. But that doesn't seem to happen very much anymore.
I remember in 2005 there was a tropical cyclone off the coast of Spain, and
Vincent.
I remember the technical discussion said if it looks like a duck and
quacks like a duck,
quacks like a duck, it's a duck. And they simply said, all right, so this is a tropical cyclone. I don't remember ever seeing before or since a tropical cyclone off the coast of Spain, but that was the kind of year 2005 was, and who knows what 2020 will bring.
Yeah. All right. So look, I guess we can call it a night. As with no big hurricanes out there to talk about, we can put an end to it here. Any astronomical things you'd like to share going into this weekend? Should we be be looking?
The Perseids are winding down, and if you are, and maybe you, Joe, I mean, I know you've been getting up early of late to take your walk, and the sunrises are coming a little later now in the morning. On Saturday morning, the crescent moon and the planet Venus, the two brightest celestial objects in the nighttime sky, will be not overly close to each other, but still close enough to make for an eye-catching celestial tableau.
Oh, too bad it wasn't tomorrow morning because I'm planning to get up early and actually try to go fishing for a couple of hours.
Oh, well, so maybe if you have so much
I'll
fun,
but
you might want to try and do it again
on Saturday morning. Well, we'll see. Just trying to think, was anything else I had to say? Oh, you know what? I was sitting around between 6 and 7 because I already had the show set up and I was channel surfing, and I came up to the Flintstones.
Oh, the episode with the Boy Scouts.
Right, the Boy Scouts and Barney's childhood Boy Scout troop, the Saber-Toothed Tigers. And they went to the Bedrock Auto. What was the Auto Club? Their version of the AAA.
Yes, right. They ended up going to Shangri-La Dee Da.
Right. So what was the song? Was "Let the Sun Shine In"? What was the song that they sang at that Boy Scout jamboree?
Old MacDonald.
All right, I'm thinking of another
Old
show.
MacDonald had a farm from all over the country. Yeah, what strikes
me.
Oh,
right, yes.
What struck me rather, there was nothing like stone or rock in any of the places, any of the other countries. I mean, it was Japan, it was England, you know. Kind of makes you wonder whether, because everything always had every name was always changed to have a stone or a rock or something in it.
Right.
But they were all, it was England and France and
well,
Italy.
They got the tents from Joe Cobblestone.
Right.
Oh, good Lord.
At the end, and did you hear at the end when the jamboree came to the Flintstones home in Bedrock, and here's Wilma on the phone saying, "Send 3 tons of Bronto burgers." I mean, can you imagine calling up a supermarket and saying, "Send 3 tons of meat to my house"?
Well, you could call Whole Paycheck Foods.
Yes.
All right, so everybody, listen. Have a great night. Pray that dry air gets here with the lower humidities for the first half of next week, and we could go be dancing in the streets. No show tomorrow, so don't message me directly and ask me if there's a show, okay? Because there ain't going to be a show tomorrow, all right? And they will message me, but yeah, don't message me, okay? But there's no show tomorrow, no show on Saturday, and we will be back on Sunday. So
At
everybody
11 a.m.
at 11 a.m. So we'll see you
I'll
then.
be here. Just make sure you're there.
I'll be here. Harvey.
Huh?
Harvey.
He's even bigger than my friend Shirley.